Benedicite Dominus, and welcome to question 170 of the Secunda Secundae. The topic for this lecture is or are the Precepts of Temperance, and I am Dr. Thibault. So we are now in the final final question of the cardinal virtue of temperance, which makes it the last question of the cardinal virtues. And if we've been going through the theological, then the cardinal virtues, we are now at the end of all the virtues in terms of the secunda secundae, which is important. Next, we move on to some other issues of religion, prophecy, the Holy Spirit. But of the virtues themselves, this is the final one, and it is quite brief. I can say that a lot because last question on clothing was only 2 questions and it went 43 minutes long. But this one, I swear, will be not only short in the Summa, but it will be a short presentation. Well, then at the end of each of the virtues is always the question, how does this fall into the precepts? And the precepts are the divine law or the 10 Commandments. Usually St. Thomas is talking specifically about the 10 Commandments. So if you think about the 10 Commandments, does it say thou shalt be temperate or thou shalt not be intemperate? And if the answer is no, then, well, temperance might be very nice, but do we even need it, right, if it's not part of the divine law? Well, St. Thomas always has a good way of looking at these things, because you can't just look at is the word temperance or intemperance in the 10 Commandments in order to determine this. So the 10 Commandments, in their essence, is about love of God and love of neighbor, right? The 2 great commandments is the summary of the 10 Commandments. The rest is a footnote, as they say. Temperance is the curbing of all the sensual appetites, the appetites of touch, the pleasurable appetites, the concupiscence. So primarily about food, drink, and sex. So in terms of food, drink, and sex, is a lot of this food, drink, and sex stuff about love of God? Not really, right? Concupiscence is not really love of God issues. Pride, though, is one of the vices of temperance, and that one definitely is. But in terms of the primary focus of it, food, drink, and sex, not that much in the divine law about that directly. But sex, a bit more, right? More than food and drink. So in terms of sex, we have thou shalt not commit adultery, and thou shalt not covet thy neighbor's wife, the 6th and 9th commandments. So in that way, it is related. So proper touch, when it comes to sexual touch of your neighbor, is applied. This ties into the second question. Are the parts of temperance in divine law? And when we look at the parts of temperance, let me re-summarize some of them. Gluttony, drunkenness, lust, anger, cruelty, pride, and curiosity. Those are the primary vices that we're dealing with. Since the 10 Commandments often act in the negative, let's look at the negative, the vices, the thou shalt nots. Gluttony, again, as I just stated, issues of food, not that much related to the 10 Commandments. Drink, not that related to the 10 Commandments. Lust, yes, remember. The 6th and the 9th Commandments, yes, it's in there. Anger, not directly. Cruelty, not directly. Pride, not directly. Curiosity, not directly, right? So in the 10 Commandments, there is no thou shalt not be cruel, thou shalt not have pride, thou shalt not be angry, thou shalt not be curious, right? These are not in the 10 Commandments in and of themselves. But how about when we look at their effects, right? The effects of anger, the effects of lust, the effects of pride. Yes, those are in there for sure. St. Thomas gives some examples, but we can easily think of examples of this. So what is a consequence? What is an effect of lust? Adultery, right? That's an effect of lust, right? First you lust, and then you act, right? And then it's adultery. Also, coveting the neighbor's spouse, within your heart you lust, and then you try to act, right? Within this, coveting thy neighbor's wife, this is specifically concupiscence, right? The term is concupiscence. Thou shalt not be concupiscent of your neighbor's wife, right? We have it as covet, but it's concupiscence, and that is specifically something that temperance deals with. How about in terms of anger? Well, it starts with anger, it moves to hatred, it then can move to murder, right? People, unless you kill somebody by accident, in which case it wouldn't be murder because murder is intentional. But if you intentionally kill someone, why would you kill someone if it didn't have something to do with hatred, and which arrives from anger? It has to be somehow anger is related, right? The effects of anger could be murder. If we look at pride, right? Pride is the queen and mother of all vices. Therefore, all of the 10 Commandments can be related to pride, particularly the first ones, right? When you consider the Lord thy God is your God, and you shall have no gods before him, right? Pride is saying, I will not serve. Pride is, I have no gods before me other than me, right? That's what pride is. Pride is you put yourself in the likeness of God. Therefore, the first commandments are very much against it, but all of the commandments are rooted in pride. So in terms of the effects are felt in the parts of temperance. Less so with curiosity. Maybe depends on what you're curious in, right? If you're curious in astrology and divinization and stuff, maybe that's a contrary to God. If you're curious in pornography, it could be contrary to chastity, which could be contrary to, synonymous with adultery and coveting your neighbor's spouse. If you're curious about stealing, it could be about coveting thy neighbor's belongings. So it depends on what you're curious in, but that can also lead to any of these 10 Commandments. Cruelty. Cruelty could lead to capital punishment, right? It could be, depends. Drunkenness, again, and gluttony, less so. Although drunkenness and gluttony are often associated with lust, right? A full belly makes one somewhat an excess of the humors, which leads one to sexual passions, an extra seminal fluid. This is some of the ancient biology that we tie into the morality here. So it can lead to it, right, by its effects. So in conclusion, temperance is part of the divine law. It's not there necessarily directly, but it is indirectly. And the parts of temperance really moderate. The parts of temperance moderate all of the vices of the 10 Commandments. If you had proper moderation of those temperate vices, you would control a lot of the ways in which people commit the sin of the 10 Commandments. So next we move, we move forward into prophecy is the next one, question 171.